Number 44, explain why the square root of 31 is between 5 and 6. So let's talk a little bit about square roots. Now the square root of 31, this is an example of an irrational number. Irrational means that prefix means the opposite or not. So this is not rational. 5 and 6 are examples of rational numbers. And as far as rational numbers go, that means that you can write that thing as a ratio of integers specifically. Now, since it is not rational, that means that you cannot write it as a ratio or a fraction of integers, like say 2/3 or something along those lines, or maybe just like a whole number like 7. Now, without answering your specific question, let's talk a little bit more about square roots and what they mean. So let's say that I have something like the square root of 17. I'm going to set this equal to x so I can algebraically explain what a square root is. So this square root of 7, it's asking you to find a number that you multiply times itself, that you square, to get 17. And there's an algebraic reason for this. Let's say I was going to maybe do some algebra on this x equals the square root of 17, or clean it up a little bit. I want to get rid of this square root. To get rid of the square root, inverse of taking the square root is squaring. So I'm just going to square both sides, square, and then I have x squared is equal to 17. So you can see that what I'm looking for is some number that I square, that I multiply times itself to get 17. So this has to do with what we call perfect squares. And perfect squares, number sequence that you should have memorized, hopefully up to about 20. So let's write down some of these. I'm going to call first set of numbers n, which is just the numbers that we're going to square, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. We'll go up to 8, and then let's square each one of those numbers. 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, and 64. For example, now, if we're looking for 17, you're not going to find that in this list, of course, because it's not a perfect square. So what we want to actually do is find the two whole numbers that this lives in between. Obviously, 16 is too small and 25 is too big. So the square root of 17, as this irrational number, must live someplace in between 4 and 5. Right? That seems pretty obvious. And it should be pretty close to 4 because 4 squared is equal to 16. So here we could say something like this. We could say 4 is less than the square root of 17, which is less than 5. So it lives in between the two whole numbers of 4 and 5. You want to do something very, very similar back up here on question 44.